Hey guys, GWS here. Here before I head out to do other stuff, just want to do some quick reactions to get something up here if there's not a lot of people on here at the moment. But some thoughts about Politicon. We have 3 debates to comment on. I haven't watched like the surrounding events because football day, that's just how it goes here. But make sure I have all this on. Okay, we're good. So first of all, 3 debates to talk about. First of all, the Charlie Kirk versus Sam Cedar debate. Um, I still think Charlie Kirk was a little bit too loud, a little bit too kind of overbearing. Um, and you can kind of see it had an effect on Sam Cedar. He's kind of leaning away because Kirk, he's just being loud, and it's like it does not help the discussion. And I do gotta say, Sam Cedar did come in with a good attitude. I got to give him credit for that. Again, Kirk, Charlie Kirk, he needs to understand, and goes back to my other point. It's like you don't, you could take a lesson from Tucker Carlson, who just debated today, and we'll get into that in the final part. But you don't have to get your point out forcefully. Be patient and wait for your opportunity and just let the person talk themselves into a hole, and then you can form a more coherent argument. But I think Charlie Kirk felt like he had to get his word in, and he had to pretty much be forceful about his participation, and that does not help him. It does not make him approachable, does not make him likable, does not help him to convince anybody to go to his side. Um, and but the debate itself, Sam Cedar's a lot more competitive, but from my listening, Sam Cedar was very cluster-minded. Like, he had his traditional points, um, but they were demolished just by the overwhelming amount of Charlie Kirk's insight, information. Um, and yeah, he used standard talking points too, but Sam Cedar, the biggest thing, and this is the big thing why he lost the debate, he became way too fixated on a single point. And Charlie Kirk was basically dancing all over him regarding, um, a whole myriad of different topics. And Sam Cedar, he'd be stuck on, for example, Kansas. Like, he would talk about Kansas. Charlie Kirk would, he'd do cherry picking of his own. That's not good on his part, but um, he was a lot more substantive about it. He did address the Kansas point, comparing it to states like Connecticut and all that. And then he went on to a range of different topics. I can't remember specifically, but he kind of went off on that. He went into broad philosophical points. And then you get back to Sam Cedar, and it's like he's still talking about Kansas, and then he goes off on like the 15 poorest states are run by conservatives, except for Louisiana, who was run by a Democrat, he said. And then it's like, like it's like I said, it's very cluster minded. There's not a lot of organization of thoughts, combining thoughts into a coherent point. um, Kirk was loud, and he was passionate, but he did have the facts, and he did not go overboard this time. So while against Hassan, I say he won the debate, but he lost the exchange. And losing the exchange just means the debate's meaningless. It just means, you know, basically winning the debate is just nothing. It's a Pyrrhic victory. Like, he didn't gain anything off of that debate. So it's like nerds, maybe 1 in 50 nerds like myself will look at the points, and try to kind of form a generalized picture of the substance of his arguments. And then you got the 99.9% who are going to think, this guy is, an angry jerk who's spitting out right-wing talking points. And then it magnifies all of his mistakes. Um, and like any kind of talking points, substantiated or not, just becomes so blown up. Like this guy's just a Turning Point USA Koch brothers talking head, and especially when Jank triggered him from the audience talking about like, getting his dad's money or whatever it was. But this time, Kirk, he was a lot better, and he was a lot more restrained, and he both won the debate, and I think he came out ahead in the exchange too. Despite the fact that his attitude kind of hurts him, but yeah. And then you got I'm not going to go much into this one because I didn't even listen to this debate much because it wasn't much of a debate. The, and I don't even know what this is scheduled for. Like, I didn't see this in the Politicon schedule, but you had Kyle Kalinske versus some Scotty person or whatever. I listened to that debate for about maybe 7 to 10 minutes, and then I just came out of it. I was looking for something from Scotty because it was the healthcare part, so I came in a very important part, a very substantive part. And then Kyle was talking about his usual standard shtick. If you listen to secular talk, you understand what I'm talking about. The whole, 40,000 people die a year without health coverage, and just his basic numbers like that. And she didn't really. She just kind of responded to those numbers with a general philosophical thing, like, somebody's got to pay for this, like it's not going to pay for itself, and it's going to make the government go bankrupt. And he also brought up the Mercatus study, which he constantly miscites, but she didn't pick up on it. Like, she was left in her own philosophical world. She didn't even try to minimize the numbers that Kaya was talking about. Um, and so I got to give it to Kyle. Like, based on what I listened to, I haven't listened to the whole thing. I don't even think it's worth it because the next thing, she was just doing it again. Like, Kyle would be on his shtick talking about Saudi Arabia, talking about Iran, talking about all that, and she just didn't have a lot to say. That's what that seemed to boil down to. So, Kyle, give him credit. He won that debate, and this one wasn't a razor fist debate where he was just a cringe fest. He's stuck to his standard formula. She didn't press him on anything, and he easily won that debate. And then you get to Cenk Uygur versus Tucker Carlson. And, like, the problem with declaring a winner here, to me, is even just declaring a winner makes less of the debate out of what it is. But what I will say is this. I think this is the important part. And the thing, and you need to watch this debate. I don't care if you're left wing or right wing. Because the way Tucker Carlson handled himself was exactly how you start a conversation with somebody. How you get along with people, how you talk on their level, even if you disagree. Pretty much what I'll say is this. Tucker Carlson rose up to the moment in front of a stage with a lot of liberals, a lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans, and he transcended the whole thing. He transcended not just the debate, not just Politicon, but politics in general. by talking about not just like solutions, because it's like, you can debate what the best solution is, and it's like I myself am going to be a little bit right leaning. There's going to be a lot of people who are very left leaning and very much more right leaning than me in a number of different directions on the right, because the left wing doesn't really have much. It's just pretty much goes toward free shit, you know. Yeah, it's being a little bit condescending, but I'm just gonna call it what it is. Um, but Tucker talked about a lot of things. He talked about the corruption of the system. How there are unseen entities and how there are unseen hidden forces that are driving a lot of stuff about American life, and that these people who have all this control, they're merely using the government as an arm, but they're also using their own capabilities. Like how, he points out that Google has 20,000 engineers working just on their search algorithm. 20,000 degree holders to work on their search algorithm. And that, these companies with these massive things, and I've been diving deep into tech, and that's my whole thing. That's my whole area of expertise. And there is so much, there's so much that people don't know that they don't know. It's like, when you get into tech, you still don't know, but there are things that at least you don't know that you don't know. So, for example, let me give you an example. Um, Something that you don't know would be, for example, um, like how many people starve to death in Ethiopia in a given day. It's a problem. You don't know how extensive the problem is, but you are aware of your ignorance. You know that, yes, there are some people who did starve to death. You're aware of the problem of starvation. You're aware that Ethiopia has a problem with famine and starvation. It has throughout history. So you know stuff based on what you know. That knowledge is incomplete. But what you can't know, for example, are like would be, for example, like, let me just bring it back to this, like how many different categories of people there are in search results and how you are being categorized. And there are multiple different levels of that. Because first of all, you have to know that you're being categorized. Not everybody even knows that. Um, and then, like, you can't know if you fall into a certain category because you don't even know what the categories are. Fat, skinny, old, young, disabled, not disabled, what disability, huge list of disabilities. Um, and it's like people are probably at least 5 to 20 layers removed with what I call the unknown unknowns. Things that you don't know that you don't know. Because you haven't even been made aware that there are these things to be known. That there is this information that is unfilled. That there is a line on this form. And see, these are the problems, is that these things are hidden from people. Another thing I'll give an example of is executive power. A lot of people don't understand this, but almost all governing is not done by Congress, is not done by the president, is not done by the Supreme Court or any court. It's not done by federal, state, or local, or county governments. It's not done by the UN, most of the governing in the United States is done underground. Like, all these agencies that are insulated from the American public, um, with just the thinnest sliver of accountability. Stuff like the EPA, it's like you can't know what the EPA is doing day by day. You can listen in on an EPA meeting and you could look at the transcript on the website, but those transcripts aren't going to go into the underlying conversations, the rulemaking process. Um, there is a rule, there is a comment period, which the comment periods have never determined if a rule is passed. It's basically a place to vent. And then after the comment period, um, which no congressman is ever going to read and is often filled with spam. They don't even try to regulate the stuff. You saw that with the net neutrality debates, both when net neutrality was going to be in place and when it was mostly repealed, or when it was quote unquote changed. Um, like, there's no real accountability, because these things are so insulated from people actually knowing. You have to go through many layers of stuff to even get the information, the thinnest sliver of information you can get. And even if you look at, for example, the Federal Register database, like, it is so painful to navigate. And then you have stuff built on top of other stuff that you would have to be pretty much regulatory compliance would have to be your specialty. And I guarantee you there's people who get paid well into the six figures just for analyzing regulatory compliance, in filtering company changes through said regulatory compliance. But those regulations, they don't go through the traditional public processes. What you see on C-SPAN, what you see, even Change.org, all this stuff that's meant to make you think that what's going on in our government is transparent. It's not. And like Tucker said, like the straightforward stuff is easy. Like the stuff with campaign ads and people, speeches, Trump rallies, all of this is in your face. And it's like, yeah, you call Trump a liar, you say he's wrong, you say he doesn't speak in complexities, and a lot of that is true. Trump isn't, Trump is a good speaker in terms of convincing people he's authentic, but he's not a nuanced speaker. He's not a nuanced speaker. He is a big picture thinker. But, like, he's straightforward. He's in your face. He is what people have asked for. And the reason they're asking for is because people understand that there are things going on in this government, in this country, that are beyond their control. And the left and the right try to take advantage of this in different ways. The right tries to support free speech. They try to support, free markets. They, like, giving people this feeling that, like, they're in control. I'm free. I'm in control. Democrats want to do stuff on the regulatory side. Like, we vote for Democrats, and then the government starts taking control of things, and the illusion is created that we're in control of the government. Like, we're going to regulate this company. They cannot subvert our freedoms. They have to do this, this, and this. Google has to do this, this, and this. This is how we're going to regulate you. This is how you're going to act. And we are in control of you. Both sides are playing off of it in the same way, but the reality is that, like, you know, people know that there's stuff they have no control over. And that's what causes the anger, that's what causes the uprisings. And that's basically where Tucker's going. Like, you know, and these people don't care. And that's the whole point. So it's like, Tucker pretty much transcended the whole thing. Cenk, he stuck to his standard stuff. He wasn't bad. In fact, I think Tucker probably helped him out because you saw a Cenk who was like he was a little bit more considerate and thoughtful, and calmer than he's been with any other speaker because Tucker, you know, afforded him kindness. Like he put forth his best in terms of like just trying to get the best out of Cenk, and I think he did. Like, Cenk wasn't bad, but did he rise above all the politics, all the talking points, all the standard, what we call now NPC stuff, standard left wing, like 28th Amendment, whatever. No, no, he's just standard. Like, this was, Tucker was just too big, not just for Cenk, but for Politicon itself. Like, it is a shame that this is only watched by maybe a few thousand people, a few thousand in the audience. Um, Maybe the media aired this, maybe they didn't. I don't know. Um, you know, I'd like this to get more coverage because it deserves it. Because the way, you know, I think Tucker showed the best part of himself and where he's in agreement with a lot of people. He understood his audience and he appealed to the audience, and the lack of maturity pretty much he shut down because it's like, you booing me is easy. That's not a big deal. That's not hard. That's easy. You know, talk with me. That was his whole thing. Was just like, you can dismiss, you can call racist, sexist, bigot, whatever, you know, or you can have a conversation. And he came. This is not supposed to be a debate. Everybody knows it's a debate, though. Everybody knows that this is gonna all be compared about who did better. But this is supposed to be a discussion. I think he came into it thinking that trying to approach it like a discussion, not a debate. Trying to draw, some kind of common ground with the left wing. And I think he did that, and Cenk just wasn't, he just wasn't up to it. There wasn't any kind of big insight that he offered. He did offer a little bit in terms of like immigration, but he started going off on tangents too, like talking about crime. Like Tucker didn't even mention crime. Like he wasn't talking about rates of crime committed by natives and all that. Tucker's whole thing was the business end of it and how businesses have been benefiting, and it's like Cenk just kind of stuck to his left wing playbook and just kind of tried to play the left wing. It on his part is like, meh. Pretty much the whole thing was just Tucker made, he transcended everything. And this wasn't about the debate. This is about his understanding and philosophy and how there are powers above us, and we all need to start paying attention. And whether you agree with an individual or not, whether you're left wing or right wing, like, at least understand the power structure that is hidden from us, and then try to learn more about that power structure, as opposed to, maybe do a little bit less bickering about the stuff that's put right in front of us, dangling in front of our eyes to distract us from some of the other problems going on. But anyhow, that was the debate, and thanks for listening, guys, and God bless.